Welcome! Today, we're diving into the world of government budgets. Have you ever wondered how your country decides where to spend its money? Every year, governments at all levels, local, state, and national, create a detailed plan for how they'll collect and use public funds. This plan is called a budget. It's a crucial tool for managing resources, setting priorities, and ensuring that essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure are funded. In this video, we'll break down the basics of government budgets, explore how they're made, and see why they matter to every citizen. Let's get started by understanding what a government budget really is. A government budget is essentially a financial plan that outlines expected revenues and planned expenditures for a specific period, usually a year. It's like a roadmap for how the government will raise money through taxes, fees, or borrowing, and how it will spend that money on public services and projects. The budget reflects the government's priorities and values, showing what it considers most important for the country's well-being. By looking at the budget, you can see how much is allocated to things like defense, education, healthcare, and social programs. Understanding this helps citizens hold their leaders accountable. Government budgets are more than just numbers on a page. They have a real impact on people's lives. The budget determines how much funding goes to schools, hospitals, roads, and other vital services. It also affects taxes, social benefits, and even job opportunities. When governments make budget decisions, they're making choices about who gets what and when. That's why understanding the budget process is important for everyone, not just politicians or economists. It helps citizens see how their tax money is used and empowers them to participate in public discussions about spending priorities. Let's break down the main parts of a government budget. First, there's revenue, the money the government expects to bring in. This usually comes from taxes, but can also include fees, fines, and borrowing. Next, there are expenditures, which are the planned spending on various programs and services. Budgets also include projections for deficits or surpluses, depending on whether spending exceeds revenue or vice versa. By examining these components, we get a clearer picture of how the government plans to balance its financial responsibilities. Where does the government get its money? The largest source is usually taxes, income tax, sales tax, property tax, and corporate tax. Governments may also collect fees for services, fines for violations, and sometimes borrow money by issuing bonds. Each source of revenue has its own impact on the economy and on citizens. For example, higher income taxes might affect take-home pay, while sales taxes impact the cost of goods. Understanding these sources helps explain why governments make certain budget choices. On the spending side, government expenditures are usually divided into two main categories: mandatory and discretionary. Mandatory spending includes things the government is legally required to fund, like Social Security or debt interest. Discretionary spending covers everything else, such as education, defense, and infrastructure. Some budgets also include capital expenditures for long-term investments, like building new roads or schools. By separating spending this way, governments can better plan and control their finances. The process of creating and managing a government budget is called the budget cycle. It typically starts with planning and forecasting, where officials estimate revenues and set spending priorities. Next comes the proposal stage, where the government drafts a budget and submits it for approval, often to a legislative body like Parliament or Congress. After approval, the budget is implemented, and finally, there's a review phase to assess how well the plan was followed. This cycle repeats every year, helping governments adapt to changing needs. The first step in the budget cycle is planning. Here, government officials gather data on the economy, population needs, and previous spending. They forecast how much money will come in and what the most urgent spending priorities are. This stage often involves consultations with various departments and experts to ensure the budget reflects real needs. Good planning helps prevent overspending and ensures that resources are allocated where they're needed most. Once planning is complete, the government drafts a detailed budget proposal. This document lists all expected revenues and planned expenditures, broken down by department and program. The draft budget is usually prepared by the Finance, Ministry, or Treasury Department with input from other government agencies. It's a complex process that requires balancing competing demands and making tough choices. The draft is then presented to the legislative body for debate and approval. After the budget is drafted, it goes to the legislative body, such as Parliament or Congress, for approval. Lawmakers review the proposal, debate its merits, and may suggest changes. This stage is crucial for transparency and accountability, as it allows elected representatives to scrutinize spending plans and ensure they align with public interests. Sometimes, the budget process can become contentious if there are disagreements over priorities or funding levels. Once the budget is approved, it's time for implementation. Government departments receive their allocated funds and begin carrying out programs and services as planned. This stage involves careful monitoring to ensure that spending stays within approved limits and that funds are used efficiently. Implementation is where the budget's impact is felt most directly, as it translates plans into real-world actions that affect citizens' lives. Throughout the year, government agencies monitor spending and track progress toward budget goals. This ongoing evaluation helps identify any problems early, such as overspending or delays in projects. Regular reports are prepared and shared with oversight bodies to ensure transparency. If issues are found, adjustments can be made to keep the budget on track. Monitoring and evaluation are key to making sure public funds are used responsibly. At the end of the budget cycle, a formal review and audit are conducted. Independent auditors examine financial records to ensure that funds were spent as intended and that no fraud or waste occurred. The results are reported to the public and to government leaders. This final step is essential for building trust in the budget process and for learning lessons to improve future budgets. A key concept in budgeting is whether the budget is balanced, in deficit, or in surplus. A balanced budget means revenues equal expenditures. A deficit occurs when spending exceeds revenue, requiring the government to borrow money. A surplus means the government has more revenue than expenses. Each situation has different implications for the economy and for future government decisions. When a government spends more than it earns, it runs a deficit. To cover the gap, it usually borrows money by issuing bonds. While running a deficit can help fund important projects or stimulate the economy during downturns, persistent deficits can lead to rising debt and higher interest payments. Managing deficits is a major challenge for many governments, requiring careful planning and sometimes tough choices about spending and taxes. A budget surplus happens when the government collects more revenue than it spends. Surpluses can be used to pay down existing debt, save for future needs, or fund new projects. While surpluses are generally seen as positive, they can also indicate that taxes are higher than necessary or that important needs are being underfunded. Governments must balance the benefits of surpluses with the need to provide essential services. When governments run deficits, they borrow money, creating public debt. This debt is usually financed by selling government bonds to investors. While borrowing can help fund important investments, too much debt can become a burden, leading to higher interest costs and less flexibility in future budgets. Managing public debt responsibly is a key part of sound budgeting. Government budgets are closely linked to fiscal policy, the use of government spending, and taxation to influence the economy. During recessions, governments may increase spending or cut taxes to stimulate growth. In boom times, they might reduce spending or raise taxes to prevent inflation. The budget is a powerful tool for managing economic cycles and promoting stability. The choices made in a government budget can have wide-ranging effects on the economy. For example, increased spending on infrastructure can create jobs and boost growth, while higher taxes might slow consumer spending. Budgets also affect inflation, interest rates, and overall economic confidence. That's why budget decisions are closely watched by businesses, investors, and citizens alike. Transparency is essential in the budget process. Citizens have the right to know how public funds are being used. Many governments publish detailed budget documents and hold public hearings to explain their plans. Transparency helps build trust, prevents corruption, and allows for informed public debate about spending priorities. In many countries, citizens can participate in the budget process by attending public meetings, submitting feedback, or even voting on certain spending proposals. This involvement ensures that the budget reflects the needs and values of the community. Engaged citizens can help shape priorities and hold officials accountable for their decisions. Technology is transforming how governments manage budgets. Digital tools make it easier to track spending, share information, and engage with citizens. Online portals allow people to view budget details, submit questions, and even suggest ideas. These innovations are making the budget process more efficient and accessible than ever before. Creating a government budget is never easy. Officials must balance limited resources with unlimited needs and demands. Unexpected events, like natural disasters or economic downturns, can disrupt even the best-laid plans. Political disagreements can also make it hard to reach consensus. Despite these challenges, careful planning and open communication help governments navigate the complexities of budgeting. Sometimes, governments need to change the budget after it's been approved. This can happen if revenues fall short, emergencies arise, or priorities shift. Budget amendments allow officials to reallocate funds or adjust spending plans as needed. These changes are usually subject to legislative approval to maintain accountability. In addition to the main annual budget, governments may pass supplementary budgets during the year. These are used to address unforeseen expenses or to fund new initiatives. Supplementary budgets provide flexibility, but must be carefully managed to avoid overspending and ensure that core services remain funded. Zero-based budgeting is a method where every expense must be justified for each new period, starting from zero. Unlike traditional budgeting, which adjusts previous budgets, zero-based budgeting requires a fresh evaluation of all spending. This approach can help eliminate waste and ensure that funds are directed to the most effective programs. Performance-based budgeting links funding to results. Instead of simply allocating money based on past spending, this method evaluates how well programs achieve their goals. Programs that deliver strong results may receive more funding, while less effective ones may be cut. This approach encourages efficiency and accountability in government spending. Participatory budgeting is a process where citizens help decide how to allocate part of the public budget. Community members propose and vote on projects, giving them a direct say in spending decisions. This approach increases transparency, builds trust, and ensures that budgets reflect local needs and priorities. Let's look at a real-world example: education funding. In many countries, a significant portion of the budget goes to schools, teacher salaries, and educational materials. Budget decisions in this area can affect class sizes, curriculum quality, and access to technology. By examining how education is funded, we see the direct link between budget choices and outcomes for students. Healthcare is another major area of government spending. Budgets determine how much is available for hospitals, clinics, medical staff, and public health programs. Decisions here can influence the quality and accessibility of care, as well as the ability to respond to health emergencies. Effective budgeting in healthcare is vital for public well-being. Infrastructure spending covers roads, bridges, public transit, and utilities. These investments are essential for economic growth and quality of life. Budget allocations in this area can create jobs, improve safety, and support business activity. However, infrastructure projects are often expensive and require careful long-term planning. Social programs like unemployment benefits, pensions, and food assistance are funded through the government budget. These programs provide a safety net for vulnerable populations and help reduce poverty. Budget decisions in this area can have a big impact on social stability and equality. A significant portion of many government budgets is devoted to defense and security. This includes funding for the military, police, and emergency services. Decisions about defense spending can affect national security, international relations, and the balance between security and other public needs. Environmental protection is an increasingly important part of government budgets. Funds may be allocated for clean energy, pollution control, conservation, and climate change initiatives. These investments help protect natural resources and promote sustainable development for future generations. Some government budgets include funds for international aid and development assistance. This spending supports humanitarian efforts, disaster relief, and economic development in other countries. International aid can strengthen diplomatic relationships and promote global stability. Governments often set aside funds for emergencies, such as natural disasters, public health crises, or economic shocks. These reserves allow for a rapid response when unexpected events occur. Effective emergency budgeting helps protect citizens and maintain stability during challenging times. In federal systems, budgets often include transfers of funds between different levels of government. For example, the national government may provide grants to states or cities to support local services. These transfers help ensure that all regions have the resources they need, even if their own revenues are limited. Every government faces budget constraints, limits on how much can be spent based on available resources. These constraints force officials to make tough choices and set priorities. They also encourage efficiency and innovation in delivering public services. Good budgeting isn't just about the next year, it's about planning for the future. Long-term budget planning considers upcoming challenges, such as an aging population, infrastructure needs, or environmental risks. By looking ahead, governments can make smarter investments and avoid costly surprises. Many governments are working to reform their budgeting processes. Reforms may include adopting new technologies, increasing transparency, or changing how spending decisions are made. The goal is to make budgeting more effective, efficient, and responsive to citizens' needs. There are international standards and best practices for government budgeting developed by organizations like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. These standards promote transparency, accountability, and sound financial management. Following them helps countries build strong, stable economies. Communicating the budget to the public is a vital part of the process. Governments use reports, websites, and media to explain budget decisions and outcomes. Clear communication helps citizens understand how funds are used and why certain choices are made. Budget literacy means understanding how government budgets work and why they matter. When citizens are budget literate, they can better engage in public debates, hold officials accountable, and advocate for their needs. Education and outreach programs can help improve budget literacy across society. To sum up, government budgets are essential tools for managing public resources, setting priorities, and shaping the future. They involve complex processes, tough choices, and ongoing evaluation. By understanding how budgets work, citizens can play a more active role in ensuring that public funds are used wisely and effectively. As we look to the future, government budgets will continue to evolve in response to new challenges and opportunities. Advances in technology, changing demographics, and global events will all shape how public funds are managed. Staying informed and engaged is the best way for citizens to help build a better, more accountable government for everyone.